Modern industrial safety is built on a specific assumption. When engineers design a factory floor, they lay out strict procedures, paint bright lines, and install heavy physical barriers. The theory is that workers are perfectly rational actors who will always choose the designated safest path. But a human being is not a machine. When a worker makes a mistake, labeling it human error often ignores the internal mechanisms that drove that person to take a risk. Early safety efforts focused almost entirely on physical guards and machine design. However, as the field evolved, it became clear that preventing accidents required looking beyond the machinery to the invisible psychological factors that actually drive human behavior. To understand why systems fail, we must account for the friction between human biology, our cognitive limits, and the habits we've learned through reinforcement. The human brain is divided into functional regions. The frontal lobe is the center for higher-level reasoning, logical decision-making, and the coordination of movement. It is the hardware we rely on to navigate a workplace safely. In a high-stress environment, an involuntary sequence takes over. The brain activates the HPA axis, starting with the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary, to prepare the body for a perceived threat. This signal triggers the adrenal cortex to release cortisol directly into the bloodstream. This hormone is essential for energy regulation, but its presence signals the body to prioritize immediate survival over complex thought. In a modern workplace, this flood of cortisol narrows a worker's focus and induces fatigue. Crucially, it inhibits the frontal lobe, actively suppressing the reasoning centers needed to assess complex risks. As cortisol levels remain elevated, this suppression erodes a worker's judgment. A person who was perfectly capable at the start of a shift may begin making impulsive, risky decisions as their biological stress response impairs their ability to think logically. Even without intense stress, the mind has limits. The Wickens information processing model shows how a massive influx of sensory information is funneled into a very narrow working memory. To manage this bottleneck, the brain uses heuristics, rapid mental shortcuts, designed to make quick decisions under uncertainty. We sacrifice accuracy for speed, often without realizing it. One common failure of these shortcuts is optimism bias. This leads people to irrationally believe that negative events, like a workplace injury, are less likely to happen to them than to their colleagues. We also succumb to the fundamental attribution error. When we see a coworker have an accident, we tend to blame their personality or clumsiness rather than identifying a flawed procedure or a systemic failure. These cognitive biases function as persistent blind spots. When we rely on flawed shortcuts to evaluate safety, we stop seeing risks clearly, making a serious error much more likely over time. Because biology and cognition are fallible, safety professionals look toward behavioral science. B.F. Skinner demonstrated that our future actions are largely shaped by operant conditioning, the consequences that follow our behavior. This explains why a workplace culture based primarily on punishment and reprimands often fails to improve long-term safety. Constant punishment increases physiological stress, reactivating the HPA axis. It can even lead to learned helplessness, where workers feel they have no control over their environment and simply stop trying to work safely. Positive reinforcement builds a different path. By rewarding safe practices, we use the ABC model to strengthen specific behaviors until they become the automatic, dominant choice for the worker. Of course, because every individual has a different personality profile, these reinforcements must be tailored. A worker who scores high in conscientiousness may respond to different incentives than one who is more extroverted. Building a safe environment is a task that encompasses both engineering and psychology. It depends on our ability to mitigate chronic stress, correct for cognitive blind spots, and use consistent reinforcement to build the automatic habits that keep the human mind safe.